Our thoughts and feelings are our own and are not representative of Electronic Arts as a whole or anyone else.
Once again, it's time for the Team Lift podcast with your hosts, Brandon Bowie and Roderick McDaniel. Let's go ahead and get right into the show.
All right, everybody. Are you dying?
I'm dying.
You waited until we started recording and started dying?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was like, that really happened.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
You died.
Yeah.
Didn't you give up smoking?
I did.
And this is the cough you have after quitting?
Kind of.
Well,
Go back.
Your lungs have got to recover a little bit. It just takes time, you know?
Golly, man, that coffee's dying right when we press record. All right, guys, we are in here. We are going to do a show that, for all practical purposes, we probably should just run it tonight and just let the salt just get poured out on the internet. We're talking about a subject that is a hot topic right now. Going to be talking about a company that's also part of that hot topic. We're not going to name no names. We'll just say it rhymes with EA. So here's what it is. We're going to talk about microtransactions in games. Brandon, do you have something to drink?
Yeah, I got some more.
Because you're going to be so fucking salty. We're going to need you to dilute some of that. So we just need to make sure there was something to drink near you.
I'm gonna make as much salt water as I can.
Okay. Well, today I'll be joined on the show by the Dead Sea, Brandon. My boy, Mr. Bowie's in, as always. Got my boy Zane Lopez in. And today we got a special guest on the show with us. You guys have never heard this guy on the show. Been a good friend of us for a long time. We all kind of work together, drive each other crazy. Put your hands together out there in internet space land for Mr. Colin Moore. What's up, Colin?
Hey, what up, everybody? Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. See, you did that smooth, man. Like you were R&B DJ guy right there. All right, so we're going to get into this craziness. We're going to get into it. So let's just start. How do I even start this? Because it's such a crazy topic. How did EA end up on Reddit? How did that post, why did they even make a post on Reddit to explain the debacle that is Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Man, they just wanted some money. They just wanted money.
But I think that they haven't even got the money right now. So he comes out and they're trying to explain why it is, they gave the worst line ever in the history of lines when he said, the sense of pride and accomplishment when you earn a character, which has now become the most mocked line on Reddit. And also, it is now the number one most downvoted post in the history of Reddit. Which means a guy could come out tomorrow supporting Hitler and child molesting, and he still wouldn't get as many downvotes as this.
We can try.
I like how you saw that as a challenge.
So
I'm dying anyway.
This is a really good one. TLDR of the Ask Me Anything on Reddit. Quote, we'll be looking into changing parts of the games you hate, which may or may not be satisfactory or even happen. Except for gambling boxes, microtransactions, and anything that makes us money. We're keeping those. We really, we followed up, it's almost like we got out on the ice and we slipped and fell and broke our back, and then we got right back out there the next day and did it again. Why did we even bother?
It was too soon. I personally believe it was too soon, but somebody else out there who thinks otherwise felt like they needed to put a couple people out before it could get out of control.
I don't think
before it could get out of control.
That fire
I think
was out of
before it could get out of control was the guy who originally got the most downvoted comment in the history of Reddit. That's when it got out of control. This is like going to a fucking forest fire and peeing onto it to try to put it out. And the pee is gasoline.
The pee. So this person is pissing a flammable liquid that is not putting the fire out, is what you're saying.
Pretty much.
That's what's up.
Okay, let me tell you something. This thing, Brandon and I were talking about this today. This is why it's the episode, because we can't quit talking about it and we can't quit watching the memes that are being generated from it. And so now that we're seeing all this craziness, it's now down to a situation where Brandon said all the goodwill that EA built, like from the Battlefield 1 hype from the trailer.
It's not even that. It's like going all the way back to 2013. Like all of the hype or all of the goodwill that we've managed to generate since fucking up SimCity over the course of the last 4 years, all of that credibility is fucking gone. Gone in an instant. And it's going to take years, again, to build us back up to where we were even just 5 days ago.
Which I will say, though, is that every day, we find ourselves with a new type of controversy when it comes to electronic arts, just because how big they are. But
when it comes to the gaming industry as a whole, like just the whole loot box thing, I mean, this is kind of like there's Yellowstone National Park is a super volcano. Mm-hmm. It hasn't erupted in millions and millions of years at this point. Like, it is long overdue for an eruption. And I think that this whole topic of microtransaction is that super volcano fucking blowing up and destroying everything in a 600-mile radius of itself. And we just happen to be the idiots who were fucking poking it at the time that it went off.
Which is something that I don't really get. I mean, I do, because we do have successful business models like Overwatch that are doing very well on a PvP-oriented first-person shooter game.
Mm-hmm.
However, one thing that I did stumble upon was information back in when E3 was going on, and a few folks were actually asked about what we should expect from the Battlefront multiplayer, and they mentioned that there were microtransactions. Now, was the community too...
The community has been primed for this to happen for a little while now, especially this year, because we've had a number of high-profile $60 to $120 games coming out with microtransactions shoved into them for no reason.
Which one was the one, the Shadows of Mordor?
Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah.
That's the big one I know of, where it was like...
The Shadow of War, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
Shadow of Mordor was the
Shadow
first.
of War, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
But yeah.
Part 2 to the Shadow of Mordor series stuff, isn't it?
And
Yeah.
Shadow of Mordor was dope as fuck.
Yeah, and if
there's
all
no
they
reason
would have
for-
done was just made a sequel to that game and not added microtransactions into it, and then this stuff happened with our game, I don't think that it would be this bad. We're taking all the heat for everybody else in the industry doing microtransactions. I mean, it's not like we haven't been doing our own microtransactions. They're in Battlefield 4, they're in Battlefield 1, they're in every single sports title we produce, they're in all of our mobile titles, but like I said, this has been building for a while. This was just a catalyst for a lot of vitriol. And I think the real problem with it is the fact that the game specifically, since the open beta, has been set up in such a way that pay to win is a thing. And if you look back at any Blizzard title, with the exception of Hearthstone, because Hearthstone is a trading card game, and all trading card games are pay to win, because all trading card games require you to buy card packs that are randomly generated to build your deck.
Yeah.
You can't get away from it. That's the business model of that type of game.
Fair enough.
But all of the other titles that we have don't have a mechanic where you input money and get power like we had in this game. Whereas in something like Overwatch, where literally all of the microtransactions in that game are for loot boxes that get you nothing but cosmetic items. Nothing. Like you don't get a better gun by opening a loot box in that game. Whereas in this game, you open a loot box, you have the potential to get a star card to make your character powerful enough that when they're flying in the fucking air shooting rockets, they can take no damage. And that was a thing that was in the original beta, and then we changed it. And then we made it so that you could only get 2 levels of power into the star cards, and the rest of the star cards you had to unlock by doing crafting in the game. But your crafting mechanic is gated by the fact that the more cards you have, the higher level items you can craft. So technically, they just moved the pay to win to another place.
But if you think about it, let's take a step back, because I feel like the one thing that needs to be said over everything at all here, EA and Disney need to profit off this. Okay?
Yeah.
So
if you slap Star Wars on literally anything, it sells like hotcakes.
It does. It absolutely
to
does.
prove that, There's fucking Star Wars branded Titan X graphics cards from Nvidia that just came out.
True.
And there are people who are going to pay an extra $200 premium for a piece of plastic to go on their super expensive video card that makes it Star Warsy. So what I'm going to say right now is that if we never put any microtransactions in this game and we just sold it at $60, we would still make a fuckload of money.
True as well. Definitely would not dare try to negate the buy power that the Star Wars logo clearly holds. It's another reason why I personally feel that this hit home as hard as it did and was used as the martyr of the gaming industry to really create the conversation. 2017 is going to end on the note of, are gamers tired of microtransactions? Even though we love them in our mobile games, we still enabled that to cross over to platform games, AAA titles.
We didn't enable it.
Well, I know
gamers didn't enable it. Companies put them in, and gamers bought them.
And they continue
we didn't say
spend money.
Put microtransactions in this game. Also, if you want to go back to the other argument too, is that if they're going to treat this as games as a service and the microtransactions are going to be the way that they're going to continue to fund this game, then why is it a $60 title with a $100 special edition? Why is it not an Overwatch model where they only charge $39.99 for the base game, and then if you wanted to get the deluxe edition, you got some extra skins in the game? Like that's the difference between the way that Blizzard is running Overwatch and the way that we're running Star Wars into the ground.
Which is again, fair point. Here's a question that I think would be awesome to have after a certain amount of time, and that's, especially with this game, is what percentage of the overall global player base actually spends money on the microtransactions? Because I personally believe that as a developer that knows that they're going to support microtransactions, that they know that probably 90%, I'm going to say 90 is like ballparking, but in a pretty fair area, that they know 90% of their player base globally is not going to spend money on the game. Legitimately, 10% of that player base.
But all
will
of those
money.
players are going to spend money on the game because they're buying it.
Exactly. They need your upfront cost because they are understanding going with this.
But if you're
model,
going to provide a game as a service and the ongoing cost of running that game is going to come from microtransactions, then just release the game as a free-to-play game.
Okay, now this is where we get into this. I'm one of those people that pisses everybody off because my kids are grown, and so I don't drink anymore. I don't smoke, so all of my enjoyment and free money, my bullshit money now, goes into these, I call them freemium. Mm-hmm. You know, there's the freemium and the premium games. So, like, I'll give you on Tapped Out. The Simpsons Tapped Out, love the game, played a lot. I'm a couple $100 deep in it. Okay, I'm just going to be real with you. It was a free game to download. I didn't need any of that to win the game. I bought it because I wanted to. Mm-hmm. I'll give you another example. Meshi Quest, which is a game from Square Enix, which is basically freaking Cooking Mama with Japanese food. Okay,
You're welcome.
It's what it is. I sent that to our group. Zane jumps on it, gets ahead of me after I send it to the group. I get pissed off and I start playing like a madman. And then after he quits, I'm still moving up in the ladders in the game. And then one day I say, I'm going to make a real world money purchase in this game. That real world money purchase allowed me to compete in tournaments. And I was blowing people away who were playing for free. Like, my real world money purchase gave me so many perks in the game.
Gave you an advantage. Just pay to win.
And I didn't even realize it was like that. I just kind of went into the game and said, hey, I want this in my restaurant, so let me pay this real money into the game. So I put money into the game, get this stuff in my restaurant, and then there's a tournament the next week. I go into that tournament. Now I have all my customers, because I paid this real money and did some adjustments in my restaurant, instead of, grinding it out. I am now, like, I finished in the U.S. in the top 163 players. Like I was 151 at one point. It gave me perks where your customers won't get as mad if you take this long on an order. It like real world perks that let me speed through the leaderboard. So I realized at that point, I just bought this position on the leaderboard. I didn't even try to buy that position on the leaderboard. I bought it. I ranked, and then they give you all these prizes for ranking. And the people I'm playing with who I know are playing for free, I'm sitting there looking at them, and they're like 25,000 on the leaderboard. They're in the 25,000s. I'm the top 150 in the world. And I'm like, yeah, that I paid to win this. I truly do, but I'm one of those guys that doesn't mind doing that. When it came to Star Wars, my whole idea was I wasn't going to fucking play the game that much anyway. I did not care. They could have came out and said it'll take 100 hours to unlock Darth Vader and it's going to cost you $60, the cost of a brand new game to get him if you want to unlock him on day one. And I'd have been like, I give zero fucks because I wasn't going to play that hard anyway.
They've already done some calculations based on the current information that's available, and it will cost literally $2,100 to unlock all of the characters using loot boxes, and it will cost over 2,000 hours worth of gameplay in order to unlock everything that's in the game.
Now here's the thing that gets me on that.
2,000 hours? That's more hours in a year than the average person actually works.
Let me say something. We just had a guy on the show this year who spent $32,000 in Madden. And you know who I'm talking about. He was on the show. He spent $32,000 on that. No, remember, he did that in one season.
Oh, yeah.
But his total from Madden 25 to Madden 8, well, Madden 17 was at the time. Madden 18 hadn't come out. This guy was $32,000 in the hole.
Yeah.
We know people that will spend that much in Madden, in FIFA. And that's still, whether we say it or not, whether we admit it or not, if you're putting money into an ultimate team to open packs to get the best players, you are using a play-to-win model. Even though I beat the shit out of people with great teams because they had all these great players and they suck at the game. All right, so I mean, it's still in a technically a play-to-win model. If I stack my team out with the greatest players in this game and I have a halfway knowledge of football, I can win all my matches. If you're lucky and you're super, super good, maybe. But there's no difference in those. And I think the problem that we see is that companies like EA have figured out there are people like me who will pay that money well over what we were going to do for Star Wars. And it's called that, what I call the cost-benefit analysis, is what I told Brandon earlier. I look at a cost-benefit analysis. What is it going to cost me? How does it benefit me? But the thing in every cost-benefit analysis that we have to ask ourselves is it fucking worth it?
Here's the thing. A game like Overwatch that does not have any pay-to-win elements, where everything is completely cosmetic, has 35 million players.
Exactly.
Which automatically proves that if you create a game that people actually like, you do not need microtransactions for that game to be successful. In fact, there were going to be no microtransactions in that game. And the entire community asked them to put a progression system in and to put loot boxes in and to do cosmetic stuff to expand the game on the forums during the beta. So part of the problem is that there is a large amount of the consumer base who has been trained to think that if there is no microtransactions in the game and there are no loot boxes, then why am I playing this game? Which does not make any goddamn sense to me. As somebody who started out playing Doom and Quake on PC in the mid-90s and played Quake for literally almost 10 straight years, never paid for anything other than the base game, never bought anything in the game. Like, there were no microtransactions, there was no progression system, there was no ladder. It was just, I'm playing this for the fun of this title. And we fucking lost that entirely in one generation.
Thanks, Obama.
So
Did you really just hit us with a thanks? I gotta. You shut up and don't say anything else. You said one thing the whole show, and that was it. You blew it right there. All right, go ahead, Colin.
I mean, I would like to say that Obama could have something to do with this. That's a whole nother debate. So Zane, I understand, but I mean, there's a lot of people to blame, right? There's a lot of people to blame for these type of models of games. I think everybody out there, every true passionate gamer that really follows their brand and they want to believe in that brand, especially for folks that work for those gaming companies, they don't want to be in negative PR created by their corporate overlords. But at the same time, you got to come to a medium here. There has to be some talks where I think it starts.
The medium.
Well,
the
hold on,
medium
the one
is.
thing I want to say. Let me just to get this across is that if we want this to change, if we really want this to change, it really does come down to fixing how the game industry is allowed to operate. If you got to look at it at the master scale, right? Like, because we can complain about it for one specific game or just games that will continue to come out, but like master scale, you have to legitimately restrict the gaming industry's guidelines for what they can offer us as consumers to even think about getting to the point
I think
that we don't
loot
see
boxes
loot boxes.
need to be regulated by the ESRB, because if that doesn't happen, the government's gonna do it, and it's already starting. Like, I sent you an article earlier. Was it fucking Denmark?
Belgium.
Belgium? Something?
Yeah. And
I'm reading the Reddit post on it right now, actually.
we could
So-
be fined thousands of dollars for that if that did get passed, and
I mean,
or
it-
hundreds
like-
of thousands.
Oh, because what the
Apocalyptic worst case scenario is the government decides that loot boxes are gambling, and then anybody who's below the legal age from the federal government to participate in gambling suddenly is no longer able to buy or play these games, and then that literally cuts off EA's cash flow just overnight, because then FIFA, half your fucking audience is gone.
oh, your whole
Magic.
teenage audience is going.
I'd say more than half, yeah, easily.
Because you remember this,
Easily.
well, let's be honest. Remember the stink when we changed the age limits for online accounts, and they
This also-
wiped out all those accounts.
I mean, since it's going to be applied to games, and it may not necessarily be worded to apply directly to video games, it could cut off every trading card game ever made.
Absolutely.
Well, no, currently Belgium puts Pokemon in the same realm as poker, or not poker, trading card, like the ace through king shits.
Yeah.
Like, it's in the same realm of game, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. So I mean, yeah, this precedent could change a lot of shit if they decide that loot boxes are gambling. EA is not going to be the only people going down.
No,
Blizzard's gonna
everybody.
Blizzard's gonna get
the
fucked
new
on.
Call of Duty.
Call
The
of
new
Duty.
Call of Duty has a mechanic
See,
in
the
it where
last
you-
3 Call of Duties have had loot boxes. Like Black Ops 3 had fucking annoying ass loot boxes.
They
It
actually
pissed me off with their loot
dropped
boxes.
loot boxes into the re-release of one of the older Call of Duty titles.
Seriously?
And then in Call of Duty 3 or Call of Duty World War II, the new one that just came out, they've added in a lobby system where you can all join a lobby and watch somebody open loot boxes.
Are you fucking serious?
That's actually a good
The
point.
loot boxes fall out of the sky into World War II Germany onto the ground and open, and everybody gets to see the thingies that you got.
This is like YouTube, but in game.
Well,
Exactly.
You just hit on it. So you think about it as a major disruptor, right? So there is a
Then-
huge community of people who play our games and other similar games, and their whole YouTubing series will be opening loot crates, opening
And packs.
packs, and
Yeah.
getting people hyped.
And people
And
like
selling-
watching that crap.
and they love it.
You don't get a million
Love it.
subscribers by, hey, I'm just going to play the game.
I mean, this is
When a guy just does nothing but open packs, and all of a sudden we see, wow, you got 300,000 subscribers in a month, and all you do is open packs on here, and you suck at playing the game. Mm-hmm. It happens.
Absolutely.
the whole thing has so many far-reaching implications into every aspect of gaming. Twitch and Amazon's partnership with EA to give loot boxes to people in Madden, gone.
Yep.
And the one that's with Blizzard with Overwatch, gone. Any card trading game on the planet like Magic the Gathering, gone. Like
Sorry.
everybody would have to completely switch over to a new model, or be subject to having to cut their audience in half.
Absolutely.
Like, we need to rein this shit in now as a company, not just EA, not just Activision, but everybody as a whole, needs to rein this shit in now, because if we don't, you're literally going to cut off the hand that feeds us. Not just bite it, cut it the fuck off and throw it away.
Which is the big question of if... And it's actually a question I asked on Reddit today. I just jumped into a random post that was actually really good constructive feedback about a developer that worked for FireMonkey prior to being taken over by Electronic Arts, or being, acquired. And one thing that was highlighted here was hey, you know, would you as a community be willing to sacrifice $120 for no day one patch, a full complete game, including expansion packs, no microtransactions, and full support for that one low cost of $120?
Yeah.
And the first response of some random fella that popped up wasn't the most negative, but whoa, let's sum that down and bring it to 100. And that's where I think there is an issue that gamers also have the problem of, I want the cake and I want to eat it too. Just like how EA has it, where they want to make all the money, consumers want to save all the money.
The problem there is the fact that the general cost per video game has not gone up with inflation over the past 20 years.
Absolutely.
If we would have actually, as an entire industry, continued to have the price climb steadily like it's supposed to, that happens with any other industry, we would not be in the situation that we're in right now, where every single company feels the need to make extra money off of their customers by putting microtransactions in. I've said this for fucking years. If Battlefield 4 is going to be, or Battlefield 1 with all the expansion packs is $120, then just charge me $120. Don't give me this fucking pay for half the game now, pay for half the game later shit. Just make the goddamn game, put it out for $120, see what the fuck happens.
I mean, they did that. And actually, one of the CFOs, or one of the EA CFOs, Blake something or other, he actually mentioned how Battlefield 4 was a missed opportunity to not offer microtransactions in a similar way that we did with Battlefield 1.
Yeah, putting foot in mouth for the third time in 3 days.
And it really does hurt the cause, but it does show, and this is where there's another factor, and that's shareholders. Publicly traded company, when it comes to shareholders or possible shareholders do not care about the gaming companies, or more of like the game's actual community's feedback. They don't care about that.
They don't give a shit about anything but money.
Is just the bottom line. And that right there is like, you can have these outrages. The only things that will affect these games and how they're modeled is the direction that we're seeing, where investigations get opened up on a legal scale, or commissions start opening their eyes to possible conflicts, and which is what we're seeing, and which is actually fantastic, because there should be some moderate regulations over here. I mean,
essentially having randomized loot boxes in these games, and having those loot boxes give you not only power but other items in the game. All those randomized loot boxes, they're gambling, and anybody who has an addiction issue, who has a gambling addiction, or who has a drug addiction, or who has a drinking addiction, like whatever their addict issue is, can be directly translated into an addiction to these types of loot boxes. Like, I mean, it's insidious the way that they fucking do this shit. Like, we're incentivizing people to give us money so that they can have power in the video game that they're already addicted to. And it's the same problem that you see with people in Vegas. They'll go to Vegas, they'll lose their house, their cars, their shirt off their back, everything in all of their bank accounts, and they'll have nothing to show for it at the end, and they're just fucked. And I mean, we've literally seen it at work. Like, we've seen issues where somebody spent $8,000 on FIFA, and it was a child with autism, and the child got in there and had access to the thing, and they liked seeing the boxes open because they liked the animation, so they bought $8,000 worth of fucking FIFA packs. And then we had to go in and fucking refund it. I mean, I'm glad we did it, but like that's just an example of a small child who shouldn't have access to those things, getting access to them, and then spending a fuckload of money.
I've had an issue where a grown man, and I can't say where at because it's still, a situation, but I dealt with a guy who lost his wife behind a game that he was dropping money into like crazy. And when I say dropping money into, I'm talking to the point of where he was so suicidal behind it because he lost his wife, he was losing his child, he was about to lose his fucking job in his house. He was spending the money in there, and he admits it. At one point, he realized I have a problem that I didn't even know I fucking had. Now, like I say, if that can happen to a fairly intelligent guy who didn't have a drinking issue, didn't do drugs, he finds out I have a gambling issue, and he didn't know he has a gambling issue until he's playing a video game that had a system in it like that, then I can see where it can be a problem for somebody. I mean, I'm just being honest. It could be a problem for somebody. So that's one of those things where you got to really kind of look into this. Where does it go? Because, I mean, I think we're all we're talking about it now because it's such a hot topic item, but this shit has been in mobile games for so fucking long. Mobile games have been getting away with this pay-to-win model for years, but mobile games, for the most part, free.
I got you into one recently that's kind of like using the model in a good-ish way, though, because...
Yeah, because I don't have to make a payment in that game if I don't want to, but it's a fucking great game. They built it great. I'm sitting in there actually playing through a story on a mobile game.
Yeah, like they put in the whole story. There's voice acting. There's high quality fucking animations and shit.
Soundtrack, animations, voice acting.
It's a AAA game on the mobile title, and they
multiple voice language tracks.
Yeah, and they make it so that you can buy shit, and the only thing that you can actually buy in the game is boxes that get you unique weapons, and then you can also buy characters, or you can just fucking earn the characters, and you can earn the premium currency super quick too. Like early game. You just started. You're literally, if you save all your little rubies, you're literally gonna be able to buy like 4 characters by the time you catch up to where I am. I was an idiot. I spent those rubies on like the little loot boxes that get you unique weapons if you're super lucky. You don't even need those to be viable. Every single character is good in the end game. Like, I think this is a game that
I didn't even see a PvP in this.
There is a PvP. There's an arena.
There is an arena eventually.
It's a live arena too. It's so good. But like they did the microtransaction model in a good way because they put out a product that fucking was already badass, and they give you the option to buy fucking boxes with weapons in them, and weapons that you can earn over time anyway, or don't pay anything and you still have a rockin' ass team. Like, you can scoot your way to the end real quick, but there's not really a whole fucking difference between playing for free and buying into it. The progress, the speed of progress in that game is relatively similar.
That's the other thing too, is the way that microtransactions are presented. They're presented as a shortcut, a way around content. So what you're essentially saying is that all of the work and all of the heart, all of the blood, sweat, and tears that went into creating this content, just pay to skip it because it's not good enough for you to actually bother playing.
Yeah, that's why I like King's Raid.
And
quality all around.
That's just insulting to the individuals. I mean, yeah, they got paid for their work, but they're also artists, and they're people who are creating an art form, and people are just paying to get around the art form because they don't want to wait. And then we're also changing the games significantly on purpose to incentivize playing loot boxes by adding a 2,000 hour grind to open up all of the characters in a game that you just paid $60 for. Like, why the fuck do we even have to unlock somebody like Darth Vader? You're gonna play a fucking Star Wars game. Darth Vader better be in that motherfucker, and he better be accessible. Like, there's no reason to put him behind a paywall other than to put him behind a paywall. You cannot give me a legitimate game design scenario where locking that character behind a paywall is good for the health of that game other than for the specific intention of lining your pockets.
Which brings up another point, and kind of rope that back to the mobile topic y'all were on. What the way I see it is that this can impact this has the potential, if this is where the conversation really starts with this type of model of game in our console games, is does this have the potential to destroy the mobile market as we see it? All these mobile games that make us
I think
so much money.
I think so long as the mobile titles do not have a price tag initially and do not specifically incentivize people to pay money arbitrarily to skip content, I think it's fine. Whatever. Put a loot box in your game. But if you're making me pay $60 for your title, and then you're going to make me pay another $60 for the other half of your title, and then you're going to put loot boxes in your game, go and fuck yourself. I mean, if you decide that you want to at least get a specific amount of money out of people before you get them into the game, and then you're going to run the game as a service and you're going to continue to provide support for it on an ongoing basis, then you do not get a AAA price tag attached to that title. You get $40 or $19 or $35, something like that. Something small that's an initial investment just to help pay for the initial investment to make the game. And then once that game is up and running and that game has legs, if it is actually good enough to continue to be something that people want to play, then the people will pay for it. I mean, we know that that's the truth. If it wasn't the truth, Overwatch wouldn't be doing as good as it is. If it wasn't the truth, people would not still be playing Team Fortress 2 from 2007. And you know what's funny about everybody's all, oh, it's Valve's fault that loot boxes became a thing. But the way that Valve runs their model for their loot boxes, all of the content that's generated in that game, with the exception of levels, that's like new weapons, new skins, new hats, all of that is generated by individuals in the community. Then Valve chooses one of those items and brings it in-house, works with the developer who made it to integrate it into the game, and then sells it and provides profits to that individual person for the content that was created by them. I mean, say what you want about fucking them being the ones who started the whole loot box thing back in 2007, but at least they're doing it ethically.
One thing that I would like to highlight, though, and bear in mind, I'm not blind to how much money EA as a publisher makes globally per quarter, but one thing that we do have is a group of people on development side that do legitimately care, and they understand that they really bit the bullet whenever they got with a publisher in general. Activision, Ubisoft, they're all the same. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you're in bed with. They're all trying to maximize profits. And I think that one thing that EA does right, where they don't get enough credit, is for some of the people in this room. We work in the line of support that allows this industry or this company to kind of do what they're doing. And we really help retain a lot of the people that feel wronged by these models. And we're not cheap. I mean, we definitely experience some situations that make you want to think otherwise, that maybe it could be a little more, maybe we could get some of that loot crate money. But it's like there's ways to look at different companies doing different things and seeing where that money goes. It's the old concept that you see with brick and mortar businesses, right? So you see a business, you see like a mom and pop shop, they do really well, always have tables filled. You know they got money coming in and out. The question is, do they put back into their business? Do they grow the people that they employ? And Electronic Arts has their faults. Where we work has its faults. But I think that they do invest in the people, and the money that comes in from these models come from these games. It's like what I was telling you earlier, Brandon. Prior to Ultimate Teams, EA was having financial woes. Clearly, you could tell by the share prices. They've skyrocketed since the globalization of this model. It really has. It saved many game industry companies across the whole globe. Like, It's insane, and that's because people are addicted. Now, I will say that this model does exploit people who have issues,
Addictive personalities.
absolutely. It does. You can't tell me that it doesn't, because it happens. Because I get that feeling when I open a loot box. I'm like, oh, what's coming?
Yeah, it's a
where's
dopamine
my
rush.
message? Whatever. Where's my skin? Whatever game, it doesn't matter. I want the shiniest, best piece of loot out of that crate or that box that I can get. And it makes you want to go back, and it makes you want to spend some money, especially if you didn't get anything good. Now, here's the one thing that I want to ask, and I want to experience myself, because I haven't been able to do so with Battlefront.
Mm-hmm.
What does 40 to 100 hours in the multiplayer actually look like on a pay-to-win scale compared to just grinding it out? What does their algorithm look like? There are factors that I imagine could be in place that could keep it fair. Now, let's be realistic. We obviously know there are algorithms out there that other companies have used, and it is downright scandalous.
Activision has these are the other things too. We have G2A, which has started making loot boxes that are filled with video games. We have Activision patenting a system to essentially insidiously use people as billboards for purchase by placing you in a match with somebody else who is potentially better at the game than you and has an item that can only be obtained by opening loot boxes in that game, in an attempt to sell you on the idea of, well, that guy's kicking my ass with that gun. I need that gun. I'm going to go buy loot boxes now. We have World War II, where from Activision, where loot boxes literally fall out of the sky onto the ground, and an entire mode where you're supposed to watch other people open loot boxes. We have Shadow of Mordor, where in order to be able to get to the end game, to finish the game, you either have to spend 40 hours plus grinding orcs to be able to do enough damage at the end of the game to be able to beat the game, or buy loot boxes so that you can skip that quote-unquote content to get to the end of a single-player game. We have literally every sports title has microtransactions in them. They run on them. That's the way that the games play. And to me, I think that for those, we should just make them games as a service. We shouldn't charge an entry fee, and we should just let the loot boxes do all the money making for us, and that would be a much fairer model. We do that on mobile. I don't know why we can't do that on the consoles. And if we want to add a single player experience like we have in FIFA and in Madden for the last 2 years, then we make you pay for that piece of content, and we charge whatever we think that's worth.
Yeah, kind of like
as
Hearthstone.
a separate thing.
Hearthstone will make you pay for those little extra campaigns, but you can still play the entire game.
But you can play the
for free.
game without them.
Yeah.
But I don't disagree. Like, internally, being a part of EA, the company treats its employees really fucking well. They've been awarded multiple times as being one of the best places to work at. But that doesn't excuse the fact that the only reason why we're able to do the things that we are on our end of things is because we're exploiting people who have addiction problems.
Which is where you really start to figure out, are we going to find a turning point? I feel like
This is the turning point. We're here.
Well,
Buckle up,
true,
fucker.
true.
This is what's happening right now. I don't know if you noticed.
well, and that's,
but we have the most voted comment in the history of Reddit.
But does that
And
they can have that and still
and we
not
have
change.
other comments that are downvoted in Reddit that are among the top 10 of the most downloaded comments in the history of Reddit.
Oh, yeah, we're on
like
the record.
five or six posts out of the top 10 are ours, including the one that's in the top position.
But is that enough for a change? Let's be real. We live in a society where more than half of the people that listen to this podcast have complained about Trump. Hate him. We know people who hate the man. Irrational hate. I knew people who had an irrational hate for Obama, and the only thing I could figure out is that he was black. So it doesn't change shit. EA is in the job of making money. I always side with a corporation. Maybe it's because I have stock in so many of them. I'm always going to side with making money because you have to answer to those, the fans, but I'm give a fuck about fans when most companies are answering to shareholders. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day is that green stuff that's in our wallet. Do you think that even though we're at this turning point and it is a hot button topic and everybody is so outraged and pissed off, do you think we are going to see a change?
That's the question.
I don't think you will.
I think that there's going to be.
I think there is going to be a change, but it's not going to be it's not going to be like an immediate fucking 360 left turn.
Well, one thing I would like to say.
I think that the whole thing is going to get toned down a little bit over the course of the next couple of years.
I want to hear what you got to say.
Here's what I want to say, and because I think that the Battlefront battle, LOL, is not something you can win. This is not a battle that was winnable from the start, right? Like there was no changing EA's mind of are we gonna go from free to or we're not, that wasn't gonna happen. But here's what that gaming community can do when they if and when a Battlefront 3 is announced, you don't pre-order. You seriously don't do it. It's
not even a matter of pre-ordering. It's just don't buy it at all.
No,
because if someone is doing something that you don't like and it's a business and you're buying something from them, if you stop buying things from them, if everybody stops buying things from them, they're either going to stop doing that thing or they're going to go out of business.
But here's the thing. The problem with gamers, and I've always said this, is they're not the smartest community. I'm part of that community. I play the games. I hear people bitch every year about the same games. You never change this game. You never change this feature in this game. Yet, it broke records for sales again this year. So who the fuck is buying these games if they never change anything?
People who buy consoles.
But those are the ones that bitch the most.
That's messed up, man.
They are. They're the ones that bitch the most. You get these guys that are like, for lack of a better one, because I work with it, I hear people complain in the forums. I'm online on Mudhead all the time, and I see guys always, EA doesn't give a damn. They don't ever change Madden. Madden is the same game. They don't change the franchise mode. They don't care unless you're in the Ultimate Team. Yet you bought the damn game again this year.
This reminds me of a conundrum that Andrew Dice Clay was in for a long time.
What's that?
He'd go and do his comedy and people and he would do new material and everybody would go, well, where are the rhymes? And then he'd do the rhymes and everybody would bitch about him not having any new material.
That's every comedian. That's every comedian. I want to hear your old shit. But then you get mad when they make a new song. Why don't they ever do new songs? Then they make a new one and then that happens to everybody. And I still think that's the situation that we're in, is that you're not going to fucking please anybody.
I think part of the other problem, too, is that a lot of companies like Activision, EA, etc., they focus test their games. And when people are in an environment where they're being focus tested upon, they don't give true answers. They give the answer that they think everybody else wants to hear. And that's a part of the problem. The other part of the problem is, if you're going to focus test your game into the ground, why even fucking develop it? What you should be doing is allowing a group of talented people that you trust to make something and to put it out. Because everything right now within the AAA space costs so much money that if it fails, it will tank the company. And everybody is so worried about things failing that they focus test things into the ground. And that focus testing things into the ground makes a mediocre product that people don't buy. Or that people will buy and then realize it's mediocre and then get pissed but not be able to refund it because it's been too long. I mean, that was one of the biggest fears of developers over that are releasing games on Steam, was when Steam finally decided, hey, we're going to introduce refunds and we're going to do it for the whole planet. And there's not shit you can do about it. And every developer went, oh man, we're all going to lose all the money because everybody's going to be able to play your shitty game for an hour and realize it's a shitty game and refund it. Mm-hmm. And then it happened, and that's not really what happened. That's not the case. There's entire interviews over on Total Biscuit's channel on YouTube where he's done interviews with developers who have released games on Steam, and they did a before and they did an after the refund thing came out, and they're like, yeah, it hasn't really done anything. I mean, we have refunds, but it's minimal, and it's not really something that's affected us, and that's because the product that we provided is good. If the product that you're providing is shit, and people know that it's shit, and they buy it, and they have the option to refund it, they're going to refund it. So here's the problem. Here's the thing that you need to do. Make a good fucking title. Don't focus test it in the ground. Don't make sure it checks all the boxes. Don't chase what everybody else is doing. You don't want to be, where the puck is. You want to be where the puck is going, and you've got to control where it's going.
I'm going to give it a flip side of that coin. 6 weeks ago, we did a show. We talked about how everybody wanted a Twitch shooter.
Yeah.
And then they make a game called Lawbreakers. And nobody fucking plays it. So once again, this falls back to gamers
that's focus
are
testing.
Fucked up. They tell you they want one thing, you give them that one thing, and then they don't want that fucking thing that you made.
It's because they don't know what they want.
They really don't.
They don't.
And then even if you come out and you make something fresh and exhilarating, you're not guaranteed shit. And I know, I'm going to be honest with you, as a guy who's seen what it costs to make the advertisements, in a previous job where I saw what the money that goes into your advertising budget and how that affects you, that shit ain't cheap. I mean, I look at a company like EA. Let's be honest. Let's break down EA. So we know there's a content and development team. There's those websites are being managed by somebody. The content on those websites is being managed by somebody. There's a 24-hour customer service. So you got to have people on those fucking lines 24 hours a day, whether it's email, chat, or phone. Then you got the guys that are actually the developers. Let's just look at a development team. So there's your graphic artist, the background artist, 3D rendering and modeling. This shit is not cheap. The director, the producer, and then public relations. Fuck those guys. But
here's the thing: is you can say yes, it takes a village to raise a family in making a game, but you also have the flip side of that, where you have a developer that made Sinuous Sacrifice, which is arguably as good or better than most AAA titles, that was made by a small group, an indie developer for a very small amount of money. It had a very small budget for marketing, yet it sold millions of copies on both the PlayStation and PC. I don't know if it was released on Xbox. I think it was too. So that disproves the whole you have to have $11 billion to make a AAA title.
Oh, you and I are fans of the small names because in our Game of the Year show when we do it later in December,
you're gonna. I already know what you're.
We got
picking.
some indie games that are really coming to the forefront at that point. Yeah,
you don't need AAA money to make a AAA title. You need AAA money to make a AAA title the way AAA titles are made. The problem with AAA titles like Star Wars Battlefront, if you look on there, it's DICE, it's Criterion, and it's 2 other developers. So we had 4 studios cranking on one game, and each studio is going to have probably a maximum at each area or each site where that studio is of 144 people. So you're paying at least 600 people to make this game. If you reduce that number significantly and increase the development time frames from 2 years, which is basically what they got to work on this game, to something more reasonable like 4 or 5, you can have a much smaller budget and make a game. I mean, it took Blizzard. I mean, Blizzard has all of the money. They have 4 separate development teams, and they have a team that was specifically set up to work on Diablo, and that team worked on Diablo for 7 years before they put it out. And it probably cost them a fuckload of fucking money because they had to restart development twice. But they produced a title that's good. It wasn't good when it came out. It was a piece of shit when it came out. Because the guy that they had directing the game was too focused on trying to make money and not focused on making a good game. But the second that they excised that fucker and they went to work on fixing the fucking game, it went from being a piece of shit to an amazing ongoing games as a service title. And it has no monthly subscription?
I will say that I spent too many years of my life playing Blizzard games. I'm a huge fan of that entire company. I will say from my personal experiences of the higher ups that I have actually spent out of work time with, they're not the friendliest of folks, hands down. But that doesn't mean that they don't make a good product. They don't make a captivating game that draws you in. And one thing that I would like to highlight is that I do believe if DICE and everybody else that was involved making Battlefront would have been allowed to take risk and allowed to try new things, this game would have probably knocked it out of the parks and been 10 out of 10 fantastic. We would have had reviews you didn't even have to pay people for, I'm sure. but they weren't. They were chained down to these models that the gaming industry is chaining itself to. And there is something that needs to change with it. There's something that needs to come by that does seem more fair. I didn't even know about Valve doing what they did, but something's got to come that's got to be fair though, because companies need that as shareholders, stakeholders, the guys that say, I will give you $5 million, I'm going to buy in on this idea, I want X amount of money by X amount of years and this, that, and the other. Like, you got to have these people who will help invest in this. And I'm not talking about for just Battlefront, but I'm talking about for new endeavors, new IPs. Anthem, I am so excited for Anthem. I think that Anthem has the great possibility to succeed, and I will be devastated if it's pay to win. I think that any game...
Well, it fucking will be.
Well, let's hope not, but I think that any game that is a PvP-based game that is pay to win is bound to fail. I mean, and that doesn't blanket everybody out there, but I think it's bound to fail. I think that the company itself is putting a lifespan on that game, but there are small gems. There's small gems out there that have proven with the live service model that you can change. The best example I can give you is Warframe. They completely overhauled how their games work. It's a free-to-play game. It does have microtransactions.
Entirely on cosmetic microtransactions.
Absolutely, because it definitely started that way. And again, I know we've talked about it. Maybe Star Wars Battlefront could have done that. They could have gone that way, but we don't know behind the scenes conversation. But because we are missing those pieces of info, and we'll probably never get them, we have to just speculate. It's hard to say. If I ever found out though that DICE could have done that, and that was an option on the table, and Disney was okay with it, then I'm sad and I'm disappointed that they didn't go that route. They didn't trust their beautiful game to succeed, because I've played it. I mean, I've only played like the first 2 chapters of the campaign, haven't touched multiplayer, but I've played it and it was fun, man. It was engaging.
Until Darth Maul shows up and just rapes you with a lightsaber.
I haven't got there yet, but like I said, I haven't played the multiplayer. Luckily, microtransactions don't.
You know what I'm
exist in the
talking about,
campaign.
because you played in the fucking second beta. You play in that bit, the open beta that we put out.
Yeah.
The second that Darth Maul was gotten by anybody, the game was over.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair, but that's how I felt in the first one, though.
And we're talking about, like, that character that's that powerful in that game would have been able to have been just purchased by somebody. And then that person is the only one who's having fun at the expense of everybody else that's in that game.
Which, again, is all dictated based off of algorithm. I'm not saying that I'm saying that I already know, I expect if I'm going to play the multiplayer to this game, I'm going to have those moments. But at the same time, I'm an educated gamer. I'm going into this game knowing that someone out there who lives in Saudi Arabia has already spent the $3,000 to max out this game. And guess what? There ain't nothing I can do to stop it.
Why's it got to be Saudi Arabia?
Because, man, they spend a lot of money.
You know they do.
They spend a lot of money, and I've seen some stuff, and that right there kind of proves it, and that it really does. Is that there are people out there that have endless bank accounts that love gaming, and that if they have a free to play game that they can max out and be the best at because they have the prettiest and shiniest rockets and the best stuff, then guess what? They're going to do it. They're going to buy it. But are you going to experience that 10 out of 10? Because I have mobile games. You know, if we're going to compare this to a mobile game, because we can, because that's how
It's a AAA mobile
It is
title.
really, it really is. It's first of its nature. But I have mobile games that I like, that I have as well, and that I've spent money on, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. But I also know that if I don't spend money on this game, I'm still satisfied with it. I'm still having a good time. I have come across those PvP moments in this game that I'm like, man, it makes me frustrating. It makes me makes me think, like, just let it happen. Just whatever. I'm going to move to the next round, and I'm not even have to worry about this guy. Until it happens again, and then I'm like, why do I play this game? And then I have a good moment. And then I have a streak of great moments where it doesn't matter. I've just beaten a bunch of people that I know have spent money to get where they are. But that makes me feel better that I've used my skill to beat these guys that have spent money. And that's where I think there's another problem, is that you have that too.
I mean, if we're going to continue going down this trend of AAA titles stealing things from mobile games and then putting them in their games, the next time we release another Star Wars title, it's probably going to be a Star Wars first-person shooter that plays itself.
Simulate the multiplayer.
Every fucking mobile game that I see everyone at work play now, they all just play themselves. They're not games. It's not a game. That game that you were playing, Zane, earlier, that's not a game.
I'm sorry
to tell you.
Grinding.
That's not a game.
Whenever I'm doing PvP and world bosses, I'm playing that bitch.
That's not a game. If all it does is consume CPU cycles and you never have to touch it, that's not a game.
You know what?
I have to touch it.
Shut the fuck up, Nazi. Here you are being Adolf Hitler. You had a great fucking 57 minutes, and then you got to get on your I determine what's fun in a game for people. You motherfucking Nazi. I'm so sick of you.
But see,
Shut up.
that's a good point. You actually just said a good thing right there, Coach. Like, you know, there's also that, is that...
Oh, yeah, what determines your fun factor? It's a
Yeah.
cost-benefit. And this is the thing. Brendan and I sit here, and the sad part is Brendan and I do the flip side of these coins. Mm-hmm. Like, we will, for entertainment purposes, when there's not a show, Brendan and I will go, let's argue for this. Now let's argue against everything we just argued for. And we're entertained by that. But that's our thing. We realize the gaming industry is... Of all the shit we give gaming industry, it really, based on any and every other form of entertainment, it's still in its fucking infancy. I mean, when we look at the movie industry, movie industry's got some time behind it. You know, they were making silent pictures in the 1920s. The gaming industry? Do we really?
70s. It's been like...
The Atari 2600?
60 years now.
Are we going to say the 70s with the Atari and Pong? We could say that's the game. That's the birth of the gaming industry. Think about that. That's a baby,
but
compared to other forms of entertainment, and they're still trying to work it out.
Yes, but we iterate a hell of a lot faster than Hollywood ever has.
Oh God, no! We make leaps and bounds.
We're hundreds of thousands of generations into video games at this point. Like every year, we're releasing multiple titles. There are different platforms. There's different operating systems. There's different game models.
Different ways to get the game delivered to you.
Genres, like how the game gets to you has been changed. Like everything has been changed. It's constantly in flux, and that's the point. Is like I think this is the turning point, but this isn't the hard stop that everybody wants it to be. This is, oh shit, we've fucked up. We should probably just back away for a little bit, let things cool down. And then we're still going to have microtransactions, but we need to fucking sit up and realize that if we continue down this path, all of this will end.
Oh, yeah, we will be back into another video game bust. And that stock that I own in multiple companies ain't going to be worth a damn dime.
The video game apocalypse.
Yeah, no, it could definitely... Hey, look, Nintendo has proven to me that shit can go from... eating steak to eating Vienna sausages pretty damn quick, bro.
Them motherfuckers went right back up, though.
Thank God for that Switch.
Thank God for that NVIDIA Switch.
That NVIDIA Switch. I love that NVIDIA Switch.
All of this started because NVIDIA decided that they wanted to go try to make chips that use the lowest power possible for data centers so that they could start ramping up data centers that were very power efficient so that now they can do artificial intelligence and fucking self-driving cars and shit like that. And the NVIDIA Switch is just a byproduct. They made a mobile chipset to prove that they could make their graphics chips low power enough to put into a cell phone and a tablet. And then they made a gaming tablet, and then they took the guts out of that gaming tablet and they sold it to Nintendo, and Nintendo put it into their gaming tablet that they've released as the Nintendo Switch. So all of Nintendo's success right now rides in the fact that Nvidia just wanted to make lower power chips.
Isn't Nvidia, isn't that the only console that they're put into then? Because aren't they AMD based?
Yeah, all the other consoles are AMD based.
Huh.
And that's the thing is, like, AMD doesn't even actually make... AMD gave the specs for the chips to... like, basically sold the rights to produce those things to Microsoft and Sony. And Microsoft and Sony manage and produce those chips for themselves, and then they give a percentage to AMD. AMD is doing that specifically so that they have market share. It has absolutely nothing to do with them making really any money off of those consoles because of how cheaply they're sold. Like the Xbox One X that just came out, it's an RX 480. It's a Polaris chip that was released like 3 years ago on PC, 2 years ago on PC, combined with the exact same processor from the original Xbox release. They just updated the design a little bit. It's still just a Jackwire processor from like 5 years ago because it's cheap for them to produce that chip. They've got a fuckload of that stock laying around. So they overclocked it, they added a little bit more RAM, they put in a graphics card that's been updated just a little bit, and they repackage it and put it out and write 4K on it, even though it's not really 4K. And everybody just fucking eats it up because they're all fucking Play-Doh eating tards.
Well, I mean, aren't those same Play-Doh eating tards the people?
The ones that are making us all the money off microtransactions, yeah.
Absolutely, man. I mean, and see, here's another caveat to this whole debacle, and that's straight up education. It's being educated. I'm sure either you stumbled across that information or, you know,
it's been readily apparent that that's what it was even before it came out, especially after they released the fucking specs for it. It's basically an RX 480 that has a couple of extra compute units on it.
Yeah.
So I think it's got 44 compute units, and the RX 480 has like 36 or something.
We did a show on it before it launched, and when they were announcing it, one of the first things that happens is I get excited about a console that's coming, and then Brandon spends the next month trying to shit on me for that console. And so then he really researched it and then sent me, here's all the specs. Why are you getting this piece of shit? Because I want to play Mario on it, you Adolf bastard. These are our texts. But at the same time, I never debate that he's wrong. He's never wrong about it. It's just like, I think even when we did the show with Major Tom from Chainsaw 8, we pretty much landed on the side of, you're not saying anything to stop us from getting these switches. We want these switches. But you were right about, oh wow, the specs on this shit really are an NVIDIA Shield. This is an NVIDIA Shield tablet.
Yeah, I think
with
the only
Nintendo licensing.
I think the only real difference between that and the actual Shield tablet is the operating system, and I think they also did a process node shrink, so the actual chip is theoretically smaller, which makes it faster because there's less space that the electrons have to move around in order to process information.
There is a hack that I learned from the NVIDIA Shield that you can do on a Switch, and I'll tell you guys after the show. I'm not going to go into it on here.
I just want to make the point that
No, show's over.
The point I feel like needs to be made is exactly where there's the disconnect, right? So Brandon over there, you've done your 100 hours of research in regards to this product. So you know the ins and outs. You know the traps. You're an educated buyer at that point. That's where one of the other exploits that needs to be highlighted, and that's essentially calling people out. Is that if you're going to be so outraged, you got to do your research. You got to do your research. But then it also comes back on you, coach, where you're telling me it doesn't matter what you tell me. I love it and I'm going to buy it, so shut the fuck up.
Here's our problem. That is the fucking game industry. I keep saying gamers are not smart people.
I mean,
I say this and I don't mean it to be facetious, and I'm not saying it like I'm better than anyone. It is, I don't know how many times I've had people call me, my family, people who I love, have called me complaining about a game that they buy every fucking year, the same shooter every year, and it doesn't change, or the same assassin game every year and it doesn't change.
Which one that is.
And then you call me complaining about this
Dishonored.
shit.
Oh,
Clearly.
yeah.
You call me complaining, but
Dishonored
here's the thing:
4 sucked.
you had a right to vote with your dollars, and you can't say
Dishonored
that you
Unity.
didn't know what was in the game because we got multiple websites that give you reviews, multiple betas that came out with reviews, multiple fucking videos online. Most people buy games, don't put any research into it. They hear Zane make a Reddit post, and then Zane goes off, and that's their fucking info in the game. They didn't research it for themselves. Or they get a guy like Brendan who
all
comes
Zane's
on the
fault.
podcast. And everything is Zane's fault. It's Zane, Jesus, Hitler, Trump.
What
If
about
one of them
Obama?
four didn't, Obama was out of office. He no longer has anything to do with anything. Obama is like, y'all can suck my dick. That's Obama now.
Can we still blame Trump?
Oh, Trump gets all the way.
Okay, all right.
I like Trump, man.
I mean, he's wild. He got tiny hands.
You know the reason I like him? He's just getting beat up so much now. I feel like he's a little kid on the playground. I just go, I'm not saying you didn't bring it on yourself, but I like you, you dumb bastard. That's all it is.
It's his hair, man. You like his hair.
That hair is amazing. I don't care what anybody says. But then again, I'm bald, so what do I know?
That's what it is, man.
All right, we're getting out of here because we're about to go into a whole nother realm. All right, man. Colin, thanks for coming on the show, man. I truly appreciate you doing this with us. We definitely got to get you back on here again. Brandon, thank you. You were very reserved this episode.
I'm always this way.
Dude, you're very hateful off the air about this subject, but you were very reserved for this one. Zane,
Thanks
thank you for
listening to
saying
the
one
Team
thing,
Lift
and that
Podcast
being
with your
total
host,
garbage.
Brandon Bowie and Roderick McDaniel.
We appreciate you.
Go back and let your game play itself.
Be sure to follow us on our Twitter page @GoTeamLift, as well as our personal pages @CoachSilky and @ThighSide. You can direct questions and comments to us on our Twitter page, as well as find links to all of our social media outlets. Thank you for listening. See you again next week.